Hello, hi everyone, and this is Gregor speaking here, and we're on the stream live. Yep, I think we're live. All good, all good. This is the 8th in this series, and a kind of long series of sessions where I'm going to be talking to people and doing demos and kind of that kind of stuff. Mark's not actually here yet; he's on a call right now, so hopefully he's going to join us in a little minute. So I'm going to have to fill. Which is going to be fun. Yeah, so Marc Duiker is going to be on tonight, and he's talking about Dapr. So just to fill some time between now and then, if anyone does want to join, then they can join. Let me just bring up the banner. If anyone would like to appear on the show, then you can appear at calendly.com/g30/live-streaming. I think I've 26 people lined up. So hopefully, if you're interested in coming on, just let me know. Fill in that calendar. I'm trying to do it Monday to Friday between 7 and 10 at night. Let me know if it doesn't suit time-wise and we can move it. I've got people booked all the way till September, but please do fill it in if you want to come on. Yeah, so tonight, just to recap, we're talking to Mark. Tomorrow I've got a night off, which is good. Thursday, I have Freek Pearson talking about Bicep and all of the new features that are coming out and are already out in Bicep. That's from 7 till 8 Thursday night. And also on Thursday night from 9 till 10, we've got Adam Jackson. Oh, I'm looking forward to speaking to Freek and Adam. And then on Friday, we've got Shusheta Gawad, who's going to be talking about her career and kind of how she got into her career and stuff like that. And then we've got Shabazz coming up next Monday on the 24th and Neo. And then we've got Tijani on the Tuesday, and Andy Cutler's going to be doing some demos on some, I think it's Lakehouse stuff, if I've got that right. And then Keith's coming back on the Wednesday. He's going to be talking about Power Platform, and we're going to be doing demos on that. So I'm trying to get into a bit more demos as well. Next Wednesday, we've also got Sam Cogan, who's going to be talking about and also demoing Pulumi, which will be good. That's kind of like C# writing code and other languages to do infrastructure as code. So rather than doing PowerShell or AZCLI or Terraform or Bicep, it's going to be about Pulumi. So I'm looking forward to that because I've not really tinkered with that yet. The day after that, we've got April coming on. So April Edwards, who works at GitHub, is going to come on and she's going to kill me for saying that. Coming on and talking about, well, we're actually doing a Ask April Anything. So that should be a good laugh. After that, we've got Veronica Kolesnikova. Hopefully I haven't butchered Veronica's surname. She's going to come on and do an AI chat with me, and we're going to talk about some demos of the new features, the OpenAI Studio. Then we've got John Kilmister, who's coming on. He wants to talk about, let me see if I can remember. I think he's going to talk about his blog and getting into Azure and all sorts of Azure dev things. After that, we've got Ilkan Yusupov. I'm butchering everybody's surname, so I do apologise. He's going to be talking about his career and Bicep as well. I think he wants to talk about his Bicep and his Bicep community that he's kind of dealing with. After that, we've got Anthony Mashard. Good old Anthony. He's going to be talking about NetApps, something, again, I don't really know too much about. So I'm looking forward to talking to Anthony. I haven't caught up with him for quite a wee while. After that, we've got Lisa Hoving, who's going to come on and talk about Databricks and some, I'm not exactly sure how you add, some sort of add-on for Databricks called Great Expectations. So there's plenty of puns going to be in that one. Then after that, we've got Deepti Guguru. She's going to be talking about Azure SQL and kind of how she got started in her career, how she's going, doing lots of talks, lots of demos. Looking forward to that. Then we've got Craig Nichol talking about Cosmos DB. He's going to be doing some demos as well, so that'll be good. Wim Mathiassen's coming on, and I've absolutely forgotten what he wants to talk about. Let me see if I can see. He wants to talk about hybrid cloud and Azure Arc, so we'll be hopefully doing some demos and looking at that. And then we've got Vukasin Terzic, who I managed to meet at the MVP Summit. He wants to talk about working remotely while traveling. So he's been moving, I think he's from the Czech Republic originally, and he's going to be moving, well, he has been traveling all over the world. So yeah, we'll figure out what the technical topic is, but we'll be talking about working remotely while traveling, so that should be quite interesting. And then the last two we have is, we're going to be talking to an ex-colleague of mine at Intercept, Sandra Schneider-Dragon. Sandra was a sales lady at Intercept, and she's moved on, so we'll be chatting to her about SAP in Azure, SAP in Azure, and also neurodiversity, so that'll be one to watch out for. And then recently, Christian Lerner's just signed up, so what does he want to talk about? He wants to talk about Azure Functions, Azure Developer CLI, awesome, and what you can do with them with lots of demos. So that should be really good. Yeah, hopefully. Let me just open up Twitter just to see if Marc's clicking about it. I don't think he's here. He said he was on a call. I know he's working for a company in Seattle, so he's kind of doing crazy hours. Oh, where's the link? Okay, hang on. I need to send him a link. I thought I had. Let me just do that. Just send him that. So hopefully he's going to join in a minute. Yeah, so it should be interesting looking at all these sessions. Really looking forward to talking to absolutely everyone. Lots of different topics. If you want to come on and have a chat, or if you want to come on and demo stuff, then please do fill that in, and we will get people on, and we shall do some chatting away, have a good laugh. We'll do some demos as well. I haven't started on my. Oh, here he is. Marc, how you doing?
Hello, there I am. I'm doing okay.
Sorry.
Doing okay.
I panic over. I don't need to fill time anymore.
That's okay.
How are you?
Oh yeah, it's today is like a super busy day, but also with lots of good stuff. So yeah, I am pumped, and yeah, thank you for this invite. Yeah, I love to be here.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's good to have you on. It's good to see you again. Haven't spoken to you in about a week.
Well, sometimes it can be months, sometimes it can be days, but that's fine, right? That's how
this is my way of catching up with people who I haven't spoken to for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Marc, for people who don't know who you are, give us a bit of an introduction to who Marc Duiker. Is it Duiker?
Duiker. Hey, oh yeah. That's very good. That's very good. Duiker. Yeah. Yeah. So Marc Duiker. I'm from the Netherlands. That's why I have this weird last name. And I'm a developer advocate for Diagrid, and that is a US-based startup founded by Mark Vassel and Jeroen Snyder, both co-creators of Dapr.
Yep.
At Diagrid we create products for developers so that they can build and run modern and high-scale applications in the cloud, in a cloud native fashion. And a bit more specialized for me is that I'm also now a Dapr Community Manager, so I'm quite involved with Dapr and trying to increase the Dapr awareness and creating lots of demos with Dapr and creating blog posts and videos about it as well.
Nice.
So it's keeping me busy in a very good sense. Because I love doing it.
Especially when you're enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. I love developer communities in general, but especially for these open source projects. So I really like open source as well. So yeah, especially this one, which is really focused about increasing developer productivity. That's really close to my heart. So I'm loving it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got a lot of things going. Well, you had a lot of things going on before you took this job, didn't you? You had lots of like the.
Yeah. I was.
Channel.
Yeah, exactly. I did a lot of Azure Functions stuff as well. Created a lot of content around that, and also did quite a bit of real-time messaging also as another developer relations role. Doing stuff in developer communities, I've been doing that for like half my life. So
good fun though.
Feels very natural to me.
Apologies, my friend from Portugal, Pedro, has been DMing you all about Azure Functions questions.
I noticed it on Twitter.
Like, that's smart. So you can blame me for that one.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I've sent him one thing, but he had some more questions, but that's fine.
Yeah,
I'll do it after this live stream.
Good questions. Yeah, he's always got good questions, Pedro. So hello, Pedro. I know he said he was going to try and join, but it's during dinner time in Portugal, so he's not going to make it.
Yeah, that's always a bit difficult with these things, right? But he can join later, right? He can watch the stream later, so that's good. Yeah.
What would you like to cover today? Did you want to do demos on Dapr? Was that right? Is that what you wanted to do?
Yeah. We can talk about Dapr. I've got a couple of slides which might be useful to provide some context, and I've got like one or two demos which might also be useful.
Do you want to just go and I can share the or you can share the screen?
Let me
so let's maybe just introduce Dapr first of all, and then
exactly.
Because I've heard of it. I don't really do microservices, so I haven't really done much with it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm probably butchering what it's for, but
first, here we go. I want to share my entire screen. This one.
I will move us out the road. I think.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, let me add that to the stream. There we go.
Yes. All right.
Let me get rid of my banner. Let me get rid of the brand. There we go. That looks good.
Excellent. So Dapr is an open source project which helps developers to build high scale and modern applications. and it's mostly focused around building microservices. So as an example, we usually show something like this. A lot of organizations are trying to build these kind of distributed systems, right, with services or microservices, where all these applications or mini applications have like a single purpose or functionality, but they still need to interact with each other. And it's not always easy to get started with building these kinds of systems, right? Or maybe creating 1 or 2 services is nice, but what do you do when it grows and grows, right? Because there's lots of cross-cutting concerns on how I can communicate securely, right? So how can I encrypt all of my traffic, and how can I do proper tracing from end to end, and how can I orchestrate business logic and have like a resilient application, right? Because we all know that a lot of
this is all the complex problems.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of things will break down eventually, right? So every other week there's some kind of a thing in the news that some services has degraded performance. So it's business as usual. So also your architecture has to work with that, right? And microservice architecture is an architecture that works very well with these things and handles resiliency very well. So the Dapr project really tackles all kinds of these developer challenges. So there's like observability out of the box, and there's like resiliency out of the box, and it can communicate with all kinds of other services in various ways, either synchronous, like making HTTP calls, or asynchronous using PubSub. So it really speeds up development quite a bit if you start working with it. And the nice thing is that I'm not going to show all the slides because that will maybe take a bit long. But the nice thing is it's like a portable runtime, because so Dapr works like a sidecar, so it works in a separate process next to your application process, and it's mostly run on Kubernetes, but it can also run on VMs. So it can run actually in any cloud or on hardware or just in your laptop, because I'll be running it on my laptop.
So people can run this locally while they're testing it all out.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really one of the major selling points about Dapr. It doesn't really matter where you run, in which cloud you are, or maybe just run on premise. So you can always use Dapr, which is really nice. Has just an example which clouds can you use? Well,
all right, cool.
So it can run on any cloud, basically anywhere we have some kind of Kubernetes or managed Kubernetes. But even if you don't want to use Kubernetes, you can use the Dapr CLI and just run it on your own machine. Cool. So one of the nice things is, like I mentioned, it's really a developer-oriented project, and it provides all these building blocks to really start building applications quickly. So these are the building blocks that are available. As you can do like synchronous communication, which is service invocation. You can also do like asynchronous communication using publish and subscribe.
Yep.
There's a builder block for like key value pairs, so state management. There's also like bindings. So maybe you're like familiar with sort of Azure Functions bindings, right? You can do either input bindings or output bindings. Well, Dapr has the same thing. So there's observability built in. I have a demo about that later where we can see that with the Dapr workflow. And you can use the actor model. So instead of like using some kind of a API to store some state, you can also have another type of abstraction where you can use like a different programming model. So you can use the actor model as well with Dapr. Secret store, it also supports that. Configuration stores, distributed lock, which is also like a sort of programming model to so you can safely use a shared state between services. And one of the latest things is Dapr workflow, which is really my...
This is version 11, is that right? That's just come out.
Well, the workflows was already in alpha in version 1.10, but there has been a couple of improvements and updates in 1.11, and so there are a few more management APIs now, so you can also pause and restart them and purge the history and raise events, for instance. So if you're familiar with the Dribble functions, then this is like almost the same thing, because it's been built by the exact same guy who
Dribble functions is really cool, actually.
I love it. And that's also what Pedro was asking about. So
I love your hand-driven. Do they have hand-drawn these?
So what I did now, so before I did the pixel art stuff, I had these neat hand-drawn slides, but these are first. So I created these indeed by hand, but in like a separate tool, like a pixel art drawing tool.
Right.
So there I created all of the individual components and then imported that all in PowerPoint, and that's how I'm making these diagrams now. So yeah, and also these ones are all
they look amazing.
drawn by hand in it. Yeah, it's just I'm doing so many things with pixel art, so it's
Why not?
I like to extend this also to my presentations. So just to explain how you as a developer can interact with Dapr. So you interact with Dapr using the Dapr API, and the API it runs in the Dapr sidecar, but you use like an HTTP API or gRPC API from your application, but you can also use client SDKs in your application as well, right? But so some people don't really want to introduce like new SDKs or new dependencies in their applications. So for those people, fine, you can use the plain HTTP API. But if you don't mind introducing new dependencies, cool. Yeah, because the SDKs make it a bit easier to do certain things. But if you don't want to do that, that's also fine. You don't need to. So this is like an overview how certain APIs look like. So if you want to do like service invocation, you use the invoke endpoint, and then you mention the name of the other service, and then its method, and then you provide the method name of the other service that you want to invoke. And if you want to retrieve some state, then you can use a state endpoint and mention the name of the state component. And I'll
super simple.
Get to in a bit what it is. Yeah. So that's the idea. Yeah? So there are quite sort of little they're now like 11 or 12 of these building block APIs, but the intention is that all of these are really easy to understand and easy to consume as a developer.
Which is important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the Dapr project on its own it's quite a big project, but it should be like super easy for a developer to get started with and to build stuff. So the APIs are all quite basic, but they're basic intentionally.
No, that's good. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So there's some client SDKs. These are like the 5 most popular ones, but they're even more. It's part of CNCF. Maybe I should share this because Dapr started in Microsoft many years ago. I think 2019 or something. But in 21, it's been submitted to CNCF, so it's in incubation maturity level now, and it's actually the 10th largest CNCF project.
Oh,
so that's really amazing. Yeah.
That's
so it's important to realize that it started at Microsoft, but it has really outgrown Microsoft. So it's doing really well. I had these numbers already, I think, outdated.
I'm having Docker tools a month. That's cool.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've got Discord channel. That's cool. So you can go in there and ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's also part of my work to make people aware that there is this Discord server. Because for instance, Stack Overflow is not really used, or have it people who and maintainers who are working with Dapr don't really use Stack Overflow. If you have questions, you really need to come to the Discord.
Is that the best place to go to ask questions? Discord?
Yes. Definitely. Okay. I'll share the URL as well with you. So what's also important to realize that it's an open source project, but there are also quite a lot of big organizations who are actually contributing significantly to this project, right?
That's
and
amazing.
Of course, it came from Microsoft, so there's quite a lot of Microsoft people still involved, but there's also people at Amazon and VMware, Intel, and Alibaba Cloud, Diagrid. So there are lots of organizations, really big names behind this open source project, which also is quite significant. If people ask, should I actually try this project, right? How mature is this? Well, there are a lot of organizations behind this who are actually investing a lot of their time and people in making this open source project better, which is really cool.
That's cool.
So just some throwing out some more logos who are actually using Dapr. So also some big names here. Again, people who are usually contributing are also some mostly using it. So I see some similar logos there as well. But quite some big names there, which is cool. I think it was really good. So this is an important one. Maybe I should actually do it like this, right? Because it's animated. So one of the important things is, you have these building block APIs that you consume as a developer. So you're writing an application and you want to make sure you want to save some state somewhere, and you can read some state, so you use the state management API. But somewhere in the back there is an actual like state resource, right, in the cloud somewhere, or like an open source one that's running in a container on your laptop, for instance. So those implementations of all of these building block APIs are called components, and there are like dozens and dozens of components for each of these APIs. And these components are across all kinds of cloud providers and across all kinds of open source projects. So also, so you can run your Dapr workload in any cloud, but you can also then utilize all of the, let's say, infrastructure resources in any cloud as well, right? So if you use state management, you can use AWS DynamoDB, or
you get to choose which
Azure
one
Cosmos DB, or GCP Firebase, or something like Redis. And I actually have a demo that uses and Redis and Cosmos DB in a sec. So that's also one of the powerful things. So when you create a microservices solution with Dapr, it is really portable. Not only that the compute part is portable, but also the rich resources you use is portable. Yes. So this is a nice example how that works then. So let's say your application needs to store some data in Cosmos DB, and normally when you wouldn't use Dapr, you would have like a Cosmos DB SDK in your application, or use the Cosmos DB HTTP API. But in this case, we're using Dapr. So your application doesn't talk directly with the state store. Your application talks with Dapr. In this case, the example is in JavaScript. So there's state.save to save something and state.get to retrieve something. But how does then Dapr know that it should talk to Cosmos DB?
Yes.
Well, there's a YAML file, a custom resource definition that specifies that Cosmos DB is used. Right. And there's some information in the YAML file. For instance, there's the metadata name called my storage, and that's the only thing your application needs to know about. So whenever you use this state API, you are passing in a parameter with the value my storage. Right. And the rest of this file contains then a specification about which state store you're actually using, and some additional metadata, which contains like connection strings or references to key value stores to actually access this state store.
Very cool.
So this is nice, but let's say you want to, this is maybe your production environment using Cosmos DB, but when you're developing locally, then you don't want to use Cosmos DB, or maybe you can't use the emulator or whatever. So maybe locally you will have a container with Redis in there. So you can actually change out Cosmos DB very easily by just changing out the YAML file.
Oh, that's very cool.
So so your application stays the same, but only this YAML file is changed.
That's cool.
That's really awesome. Yeah.
That is really cool. Yeah.
Anything else from this slide deck? I don't think so. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I'm gonna demonstrate that in my demo next. But maybe it's nice to just share two things here. So, when is it really useful to use Dapr? Well, either you're like in a very large organization and you have like many different teams which might use different technology stacks, right? Because you can use Dapr with any kind of language as long as they talk like HTTP or gRPC. So that's very useful, and you still want to have some kind of the same way that applications talk with each other and have resiliency and observability. So then it's very useful. So that's why also quite some big names are using Dapr.
I can see why.
Yeah, but also what's very nice is I think it's also ideal for greenfield projects which maybe start very small, because you can actually postpone certain decisions when you choose for Dapr. Because if you choose for Dapr, quite early on, then you can actually postpone your choice of clouds, right? Or you can postpone your choice of state store, or it doesn't really matter that much because Dapr can deal with it anyway. So I think this is often overlooked, but definitely.
Maybe just people just don't. There's certain customers that I've spoke to even recently who are doing this kind of thing but aren't using Dapr and probably just don't know about it.
I think it's actually So there's definitely some work for me involved there that I have to make them aware that something like this exists, because it's not just for like super large organizations or when you work with hundreds of teams. No, it's also useful for some smaller projects when you're just starting out. And
when I speak to customers and sometimes they think about going to AKS and Kubernetes, and they're like, well, we'd love to do that, but our dev team don't quite understand how this service talks to that service and that kind of stuff. And then they all get worried about observability and when the guy logs in and then the 10th screen falls over, how do they find that in the log? So this kind of thing, simple things that people don't realize until they try and use containers, and then they get a little bit stuck. So this looks like it solves a lot of these issues.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, there's still a learning curve, right? Because you still have to learn Dapr and the Dapr APIs. But as I mentioned, they are intentionally basic, the APIs. So that shouldn't be the biggest of issues. Cool. In the end, it most of the time still runs on like Kubernetes or managed Kubernetes. So it's best if you or your team or somewhere in the organization has knowledge about Kubernetes. So that's still an important part.
Makes sense.
Okay, I think we should do one of the demos now. So I have this, which one is it? I think this one, yeah. So let's do a state management demo.
Sure.
So I have just one service. It's an order processor service. In this case, it's in C#. And it uses then Dapr to store some state.
I'll ask all the noob questions. Why will do this?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. You're going to run this. Okay, so you've got Dapr.
Yeah. So we have the Dapr docs, and we'll usually start somewhere here with concepts, and that explains something what I just shown you about building blocks and components, etc. But when you go to the getting started page, and then one of the things that I'm going to use is the Dapr CLI, so you definitely need that. So that's useful. I also have like the Docker installed locally because I'm using some containers. As well, but if you just want to try out a bit of Dapr, then I can really recommend this Dapt Quickstarts here. So this contains.
So you can run this all on your machine.
Yes, yeah, definitely, yeah, cool. Exactly. Yeah. So the docs point then to this Git repo, Dapt Quickstarts. So that's also what I have cloned locally. I've made just a couple of changes because I want to show some things working together. So I've got my
on that wee link, you can click hide if you want and just hide that. See where it says StreamYard is sharing your screen at the bottom. You can click hide.
I can hide that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you can hide that. Yeah,
thank you.
Cool. All good.
All right. So in
you're in VS Code.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in VS Code indeed now, and let me collapse a bit thing here. So. And what that Quickstarts repo has, it has all kinds of folders based on these different building block APIs, right? So in this case, I'm looking at state management here. And then there are like different languages as well. So cool. in this case, I'm going for C#, but there's also like a Go sample, Java, JavaScript, Python, and so on. So then there's usually two different samples, one using the plain HTTP API and one using a client SDK. Nice. Yeah. So in this case, I'm using a client SDK. So this is my order processor, which will then interact with a state store. Let me first show you the program CS to show you. In this case, it's a .NET 7
app. NuGet package.
Yeah. So indeed, in this case, it's like a service. So you use the Dapr ASP.NET Core. So then you have the Dapr client to your which you can use in your application. So that's the next part here. So we have the Dapr client.
I'll maybe try and make the screen a bit bigger. Let me just see how that works.
Yeah, okay. I can also zoom in a bit more if you want.
No, I'll do that. I can still hear you. Yeah, okay. That's fine.
Okay, yeah. All right. So we're using the Dapr client here. Then we have like a variable for our state store name, and I will show you in a moment where we have defined this state store, because this actually refers to something in a YAML file. But I'm going to show you the code first. So here we create an instance of the Dapr client, which we're going to use. And then we just do a basic for each loop for 100 times. And we create an order, which is like a very basic,
100 orders,
basic client. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you can use the client to actually to save it. And then we're going to mention the name of that state store component. And since it's a key value pair, we are doing a toString on the order ID. So that's our key. And then we are doing a toString on order, which is like an overload. So it just has a serialized order there. And we do like a control write line, and then we immediately retrieve it. So we do a get state async, and then we expect a string type back. So we again mention the store name, and we mention the key. And finally, we do a delete. So it's a bit of a nonsense example for it's
No,
not a real life
yeah,
example, but it shows
how
how
easy it is.
it shows
Yeah.
how easy it is and what the API is like. So
Totally.
and again, for the delete, you specify the store name and again the order ID because you need to provide the key. And then it waits 2 seconds and then it goes to the next one.
Right.
All right. So your application doesn't know anything about the state store, but Dapr needs to know. So these things are configured in YAML files.
Mm-hmm.
So let me scroll a bit down because so in this case there's a resources folder here, and it contains a couple of YAML files. But I'm right now I'm only showing this because I'll cover the rest a bit later. So state store _ Redis. So that already says some things in this case. So the state store that was mentioned in the application, this variable is referring to this.
Yeah.
So that's the end. So if we change this variable name, we also need to update this in our application.
Right.
And in this case, the state store is a Redis state store, and I've got like Redis running locally here. Here I am. So this is my Docker.
You've got Redis running on a container.
My Docker desktops, and then this is the So this is the Redis container that's running locally. All right, and then there's some information how to connect with this Redis. All right, so I can now run the application, and for that I'm going to use the Dapr CLI. I'm actually going to collapse this a bit. I'm already in the right folder.
So just building the code here. Yeah, cool.
Okay, it's building. I didn't make any typos there, and then I'm going to. So I'm going to copy this.
So what's that doing? That's going to do.
Oh, it says Dapr run. So this instructs the Dapr CLI to run an application, and I'm giving a name to an application. So Dapr applications always need an identifier. So that's what you do with app ID. And then you specify the resources path, and
YAML file basically.
And that's basically so then if you do this, Dapr knows where to load the YAML files. And finally, I'm instructing it how to actually run this application. And in this case, it's a .NET application, so I do a .NET run. Okay, so I'm doing here, and I'm doing that. There's a lot of output because it's usually the CLI is quite verbose with some output.
Yeah.
But here you can see the console write lines happening. Order ID 1, etc. Okay, so that's going well.
Yeah, super simple. Like it.
Yeah.
So that's storing. Well, that would have stored 100 orders in Redis.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so it's storing it, it's getting it, but also deleting it. So that's the last step. So in the end, when I'm done with the sample, nothing is stored because we're also deleting.
So you could run that locally, do it Redis, and then if you wanted to say deploy this to production, you could change it to Cosmos and then point it to Azure, for example.
Exactly. Well, let's do exactly that first because I've got some variations, some variations on this. So let's do that. So you or maybe notice this other YAML file already here. So this is a state store CosmosDB YAML, but now it's the extension. The extension is not correct. So if I change this extension back to just YAML and then make sure that this extension is not used.
Okay, I see.
So
I was going to ask how you've got two, right? Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I have because you should only have like one YAML file that has like one. So this state store component name that should be unique. So I can't have like two the same of the state stores.
So see the YAML files name state store underscore. Are you just doing that for good practice?
Exactly. Yeah. So this can be anything.
You can call it anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So this needs.
Makes sense.
Be blah. So
but then you would be like, what's that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what's important is that the state store identifier is still the same, right? Because this is what our application is referred to.
Right.
But now we are using state Azure Cosmos DB. And what's interesting now is I'm also now using some of the security and secret management components of
so your URL
of Dapr. Exactly.
Question time. This Cosmos DB, have you went into Azure and set this up, or does the Cosmos DB account exist, or what exists at this moment?
That is a good point. Yeah, because Dapr does nothing with provisioning of the resources.
Right.
So in order for this to work,
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I've went to the portal. Maybe I've used CLI, but indeed I've created this Azure Cosmos DB resource myself.
Got it.
I've then copied the connection string and the primary
Yeah,
key.
got it. And you've put
Put that
so how
in
do you-
a secrets file here, because
okay.
here's a secrets file, because you can use
Yep.
like different components. So you can use the secrets API, but then different kind of components. In this case, I'm using just a simple file-based component.
Okay.
I'm not gonna click it, because then
No,
it will
that's
show.
fine. Please don't.
It'll show the actual stuff.
Yeah.
But since
How
I
does
have
it-
used,
How does it know to pick up secrets.json? Is that a specific folder or
this one? So there's another YAML file,
got it,
secrets.yaml.
got it.
And in this case, well, I just use a name, but in this case, that can also be anything, because I'm not referring in my application to this one. But this is of type secret stores local.file. So this instructs Dapr, the Dapr runtime from, look for a file of with the name secrets JSON to use for like a certain structure in that file.
Yeah. Now, another question. Sorry, I will continually ask questions because this is interesting.
This is great. Yeah.
If you're running this locally and it all works, that's fine. What if I want? Obviously, you're not going to check in secrets.json.
No, exactly. No,
So you wouldn't. You would put that as an exclude. So if you're not putting in a JSON file and you want to do this, could you put it in key? Well, what's the options for storing secrets? You mentioned that earlier, but what were the options for Azure? Is it Key Vault or
exactly? Yeah. So for Azure it will be Key Vault, but you can also use Kubernetes secrets as well for these type of things.
That was my next question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So also for the secrets management API,
you can
there are different components. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And well, maybe we should actually go to.
Sorry, I always ask loads of questions.
No, this is good. Yeah. So if you go to Dapr docs secret.
Because these are the kind of questions that I think customers would have. Where can I put?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reference secret. secret store components.
Go ahead.
This is not a list actually.
No, it's fine.
The list of secret stores.
As long as you can change it out and
here. Yeah. So this is the list of supported secret stores. So they're like generic ones, which are more like the cloud native ones. So in this case, I'm using the local file one. You can also use Kubernetes secrets. Then there are specific ones for Alibaba, specific ones for AWS, GCP, and of course Azure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And so indeed, you wouldn't check in this secrets .json, but
again, you would
in that case you would have like a separate secrets.yaml file, which then references either the Kubernetes secrets or your Azure Key Vault secrets. Yeah.
So you would create the Key Vault, create the secret, and then reference the secret from the file.
Yeah. So you would have like a different type here then for your Azure Key Vault, and then indeed have some additional metadata here.
Yeah, keys and stuff.
Connect to it.
Yep, cool, awesome.
Yeah. All right. So this is all okay.
So you've changed
So we're now using Blah indeed, and that uses indeed our secret store, and then that's how everything is connected up. So in this case, we have a database called Dapr Cosmos DB, and then we have a container name called KV container. So this is.
Can you do me a favor? Can we try something? Do you mind removing it? Can you comment out the delete part and then show me it in Cosmos, or is that a bit of a problem?
Yes.
Because I'd love to see just.
Yeah, of course. So let's go to our program and let's just put this in comments.
Not that I don't believe you. I just like to see stuff like. I just like to see you. It's always nice when you're learning coding. I think
this is a great idea. So let's build this again, and let's also get me the Azure portal now.
I'm messing with your demos now. Sorry.
No. This is fine. Okay, portal, and go to the data explorer, because I'm first going to show you that it's empty.
Yeah, cool.
Because otherwise you don't believe me, of course.
No, I believe you.
So, increase this a bit. So it is empty. Yeah. All right. Let's go back. So now let's run this again. Here we go. Okay. So now saving and getting. All right. Okay. So here we go.
I'm costing you money here.
Refresh this. Here we go.
That's awesome. The fact that you've changed like one thing and it's changed it from Redis to that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And you can see that the ID. So IDs are always prepended with the name of the application ID. So we have a Dapr application ID of order processor. So that's the prefix of the state key.
Yeah.
And then there's this pipe symbol, and then we have the key there.
Could you change that if you wanted? Is it? Can you bend it at all? Or? Not really.
That's a good question. I don't know if you
No,
can
it's fine.
change
I mean,
change the
it's all good.
key.
I just like asking awkward questions.
It's a good question, yeah, but I need to check it out. If you can override how the key is
Yeah,
prefixed
but
or something.
that's an
All right.
amazing demo. That's really powerful.
Yeah. So that's going on now.
Yeah.
All right. So
Remember, like, I
now,
don't want to cost you money.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to. Oh no, this is the other demo. I will come to back later.
I didn't realize it was that easy to just swap things in, like in and out like that.
Yeah. Well, it maybe would be nicer if it also created the Azure resources for you, but no, you still have to do
Yeah,
that.
well, yeah,
But just swapping it is indeed that easy.
yeah.
All right, so this is now stopped. I am going to swap it back to Redis now to demonstrate something else. So I'll. So the blah YAML won't be used anymore. So that was our one. So let's enable the Redis one again, because now I want to show you the resiliency that is built into Dapr. Because there are different ways of resiliency in Dapr. So for instance, when you can do like service-to-service invocation, and maybe the other service is not available, then you can have like retry policies, and
nice.
and then it can wait a couple of seconds and then retry, and you can do like exponential back off and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. But that's between like service-to-service invocation. But you can also have resiliency policies when you communicate from your application to components. So in this case, I am talking to my Redis component, which I'm now running in a Docker container. But I will stop the container, and then we'll have like Dapr, and then the resiliency policy kicks in, and then we're going to start the container again, and then we can see that Dapr just continues where it left off.
That's cool. Okay, that's a nice demo as well.
Yeah, so resiliency policies are also configured via YAML. So here's the resiliency.yaml. So it's of kind of resiliency. Again, it needs a name. So this name is not specified in our application anywhere, but this whole file is just loaded when you start up Dapr.
Yep.
In this case, the resiliency policy is only applied to this application. So you can scope your resiliency policy. You don't need to do it, so it can be optional. If you don't specify it, then it's applied to all services. But cool. you can be really very granular in scoping. So then there's the specification part. Maybe I should a bit bigger.
No, it's not too bad. I think it's quite good. Right. So that's going to retry every 5 seconds.
Yeah, so this then defines the policy. So this is a retry policy, which is a constant one. So it's a more basic one. Indeed, it's going to retry every 5 seconds, and it will just go indefinitely.
And then it's going to stop after 5 failures.
Well, in this case, we're not using the circuit breaker in this occasion, because but in this case, I'm only using the retry for everyone. But indeed, you can also set up circuit breakers and stuff like that.
That's very cool.
And so you have like the policies, which contains retries and circuit breakers, but the other part is targets. And in this case, we are targeting a component of name state store.
Yeah,
and this is an outbound thing that we are targeting, and it will use the retry for everyone. Oh, it will actually also apply the circuit breaker, I see now.
So if you commented in line 27, it wouldn't do the retry. It wouldn't do the circuit breaker.
It wouldn't do the circuit breaker. No, exactly. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
So the circuit breaker is going to run 5 times and then basically stop it.
And then it will stop the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. This is a good way to prevent some kind of overload of your backend system.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, zoom back again. So the Docker container is running. So let's run this process now again.
Do you need to rebuild the code?
No, because in this case it's saving and getting. It's not deleting, but I'm fine with that. I can just throw the container away and do a new one. Yeah. So I'm doing the same command, Dapr run again, but now it's using Redis again. So here we go.
This is very cool.
And by the way, if you want to check which component it's using, if I'm now doing a search on Redis, and you can see like an info message called component loaded, and then the name of the component, state store, and then behind you can see what kind of type is then loaded. So now we see state Redis is used, because maybe I was confused and I'm still using CosmosDB, but no, I'm using Redis. Okay, so we're now at order 14, 15. So now I do a Docker stop and stop the Dapr Redis. Now this is stopped at 17, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, and here you see now, hey, we're trying in 5 seconds. So now we have like a 5-second wait time. It's not doing anything. And then we probably see some more logging. I'm not going to do Dapr on here either. I just want to start the
We're going to start the container again.
The Dapr again, yeah, and then it should just continue with number 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there you go.
Very cool.
Yeah, it contains with 18.
So that's a bit like, in my mind, that's a bit like there's some sort of transient fault and the container wasn't available, but now it's back available, and then you've got it going again, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's quite an easy way of introducing a bit more resiliency in your application. Yeah. Totally. And I think it's especially powerful if it's not just between your Dapr services, but also between completely different components, which maybe natively don't have any resiliency in built in their SDK or something. But because you're using Dapr, there's the additional benefit of using the resiliency policies.
So what's that doing behind the scenes, under the covers?
Well, in this case, all of the complexity that you would normally have in your application is offloaded to the Dapr sidecar. So there's a separate process that runs the Dapr runtime, and all of the retry policies is actually built into into the sidecar. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. Like it.
All right.
These are good demos. Very good demos.
All right. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. Is there anything on like observability and kind of seeing what's going on?
There is. Oh yeah. Because maybe it's nice to see this workflow one. So I've made some other samples. So these are not part of the. So the Quickstart also have workflow samples, but I wanted to have like a bit more coverage on different kind of things you create with Dapr workflows, because it's still quite new, and I think it's nice that people can see what kind of things you can build with it.
This straight away looks very much like Azure Durable Functions.
Well, the API is like almost 100% the same.
Yeah, I was just like, that looks like Dapr.
Like Durable Functions, yeah. I'll just minimize this and also this because I will. Oh no.
So is it the same idea? It's like orchestration and
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I will just want to show you the repo, but I've got like so many windows open now.
Sorry, throwing you a question.
No. Yeah, so I'm now going to show you the code that's under a Diagrid Labs. So that's like a collection of all kinds of demos that I'm creating. So this one is Dapr -workflow-demos, and that contains like two different projects. So one is called basic workflow samples, and which I'm going to show you now, and the other one is like a quite more realistic case, which is a checkout service and a payment service. But it's all out there in the open, so people can have a look at it as well. Okay, let's go back. So in this case, I am only interested in this basic workflow samples one. I'm going to collapse some stuff so I can explain what's going on. All right, so this one as well is like a .NET 7 application, and the only reference we have is we are using Dapr workflow, so it's a separate.
Is there any limitations on what version? Any limitations on what version of .NET you can use? 5 and above or anything like
that? I think it's as long as it's bigger than or at least .NET Core, I think that's probably then okay. So there's nothing for really .NET framework, so that's out of the question.
That would be,
but any recent version should be fine. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so the only thing you need is
this package, Dapr workflow. This thing,
Dapr workflow, yeah. And let's have a look at our program CS file. So there's a bit of configuration that you need to do, a bit of setup that you need to do in your program CS file. And one of the things, if you need to add the Dapr workflow command to your services, and that then has some options. And here you have to register which workflows and activities you have, and which ones you're using. And normally you would have an application with just one workflow and many activities. But since this is a demo project, I have like many different workflows and just one activity because I'm reusing the same activity over and over. But yeah, I think this is understandable, right? We're using the register workflow method to register our workflows and register activity to register our activities. And I think that was the only specific bit that's required here. Yeah, so that's pretty good. But as you mentioned, it works exactly the same as then durable functions. So let's
it
start
looks exactly the same.
with the
Even
most
the
basic
names of
one. What is a bit different is there are like base types, base classes that you're using. And so that is different. So your workflow is like a regular .NET class, but we're inheriting from a workflow class that is part of Dapr workflow. And here you're specifying your input type and your output type. And then you have to override the run async method. Let me close this. And the run async, well, everything is asynchronous, right? If you're also familiar with durable functions, because these workflows can be potentially long running, right? So maybe they are like a couple of seconds, but they can also be like hours or days or months. So these things are asynchronous. What you get is the workflow context that you're using, and you have your own defined input. And then the context exposes some methods like call activity async, which is exactly the same API as durable functions, where you specify then the output type, you specify the name of the activity you're going to call, and you pass in the input for this activity. And in this case, at the end of our workflow, we return just the same output as our activity. So if we look at the activity itself, well, the same applies here. So it's a regular .NET class, but we're inheriting from workflow activity. And again, you specify the inputs and outputs here. And there's the same signature. So the run async, but now we have a workflow activity context, which you might be using in this case or not, and an input. So hey, if you have any, let's say, non-deterministic code, you put that in activities. So in this case, I have an array of greetings, and I randomly select one of these greetings from this array. And so I'm doing some randomization stuff. So that should be part of an activity and not a workflow, because workflows need to be deterministic, because also here they replay several times between activities. So this returns me a random greeting, and that's it. But normally you would also access databases or state stores or external APIs also in activities. And the nice thing about Dapr workflows is it combines very well with the other APIs, right? So you can combine workflow with state store and combine it with PubSub, etc. So that's
very powerful.
Okay, I think we know enough about this one. So let's run this.
Go for it.
So again, I'm going to open a README first. Well, this one. Local Dapr run commands are always quite long, right? So in this case, it's Dapr run, and then exactly, and then it's the head. We need to specify Dapr an application ID. That's always required. So in this case, it's called basic workflows. In this case, we're also specifying application port. We're not using.
What's the difference between the app port and the Dapr HTTP port? So,
well, your application. Well, normally you wouldn't directly use a Dapr port, but in this case, I am actually calling out to the Dapr runtime and calling out calling to a Dapr specific port. So that's, I think the default port is actually also 3500, so I don't need it, but I have it there explicitly, so I am aware that this port is used. And the application port is really the application port which you can use to communicate with your and in this case, ASP.NET application yourself. But in this case, I'm actually not using because I'm not making any calls to my service. My service only contains the workflow definition, and Dapr will actually extract that workflow definition and run it for me. So I'm not interacting with the app directly. I am interacting with the Dapr runtime because I'm using the Dapr workflow API, which we'll see in a second. But Dapr is aware that I have this workflow authored in this .NET project and will then execute this.
Cool.
Okay, so copy pasting this. Now. Okay, so again, it's quite verbose. Initially, you'll see something from some sidecar is unavailable. It will retry, and then it will mention, okay, sidecar work item streaming connection is established. Because what will happen? We have our application that contains our workflow that's now up and running, but that will communicate with the Dapr runtime.
So the sidecar is now available.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's just waiting. It's not doing anything. but it is aware that our workflow is there. So now I'm going to make some HTTP calls directly to the Dapr runtime. And I have an HTTP file for this because I am a big fan of the REST client in VS Code. So I have these .http files, which then contain some variables of
I've
the
never
URLs.
made this.
No?
Interesting.
Oh, well,
No.
I'm such a big fan of this. I've used Postman a lot.
Yeah, I'm still on Postman. I must be behind the times.
but I really like it that it's integrated in VS Code, and I can just write these .http or .rest files, and all of these calls or all of these
So do
definitions
you-
of endpoints are part of my source code.
Is that all you need to do? Do you not need any add-ons or anything like that? No, it just
Well,
runs.
yes. Well, yeah, you do need the
What's the
REST
add-on we need?
client.
REST
So
client.
this
REST
one.
client, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's just
I need
called
to look
REST
out for
client.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah,
So,
no, it does look. Just look at that. Looks cool, especially when it's in your file.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so it's just like a text file, and you can define variables and then reuse these variables
cool.
over here. So I'm just have like one variable for my base URL. Whenever you use workflows, you can specify a workflow ID because workflows always have an ID. If you don't specify them, the Dapr runtime will create one for you. But I like having an ID already up front because I also know the ID up front, and I can also query then the Dapr runtime with the status information.
Exactly. Yeah.
So and yeah, if you have this REST client installed, then you see this send request sort of link, but it's actually kind of a button. So if you click that,
I thought you were going to have to highlight it and press on.
No, and then it will execute this post request. So so this is the Dapr API. So workflows is still in alpha. So that's important to note. So don't use it right now in production. Definitely use it and give feedback to the maintainers or to me. I can pass it along. But it's not ready for production yet. So we're using the Workflows API. We're using the Dapr inbuilt workflow engine. So in the future, there will be probably like different workflow engines available, but right now there's one built in Dapr, which we are using. Then you have to specify the name of the workflow.
Someone's thinking this is a game changer.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. And so this is the name of our workflow that we are calling, and then we are starting this workflow. And then we are optionally specifying instance ID, but you can leave this out, and then Dapr will generate one for you. And in this case, I'm just just passing in a string, so that's why application plain text, but it could also be like JSON or whatever. Okay, so I'm starting this. All right, we see some more logging here, and we can see here from hello world workflow completed with a completed status, right? So we can already deduce from the CLI logging that something happened. But what we get back is a to accepted, and this does not contain any hello world or hi world or whatever, and that's because it's asynchronous, right? So what we get back is Dapr runtime received that you want to start a workflow, but then Dapr handles the complete execution of it. So what we get back is the instance ID. In this case, we also provided one, so this is the same ID. But now let's...
so now you need to try and get it back?
Now, indeed, we are going to query the API again, but by doing a get, and then specifying again the Dapr runtime, and then specifying that ID. And then we get back the real status and the real output of this workflow. So let's do that. Again, send request. And by the way, what I'm doing here is also part of this REST client. So I am introducing a new variable here, but that's using the output of my previous because I have a named
the name. I was going to ask you about that. I was like, what's
So this is the request, and I'm accessing the response and the body, and then the instance ID. So currently it has this value here.
Got it.
Yeah,
and that's the same instance ID that you have.
That's also what's created here, but this is like a complete. So this is randomized each time you use it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so this is something new. So, but this way you have like a consistent way of handling your inputs and outputs and retrieving that. So now I'm going to do a get, and here we have the response. Let me make this a bit here. Again, that contains the instance ID. It contains the workflow name, when this instance was created, when it was last updated, and then we see the status. the workflow is completed. So that's good news. And then there's like a couple of properties, a custom status, which we're not using now. We see the input of the workflow, and in this case also the output of the workflow. So now we see that, that it worked. So that's pretty nice.
That's cool.
I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to look at this observability one. Because the other one, because this is like also a nonsense example, right? Because no one is ever going to create a workflow with just one activity, because why would you do that? Okay. But let's say the next best thing that you probably do is like a chaining example. So you can do like function chaining, right? So in this case, we have a workflow, and that calls several activities in a sequence. And in this case, it's all of the same activities, but of course, in real life, these are probably like different activities. And usually the output of one activity is used as the input for the next one. And in this case, that's also what I'm doing here, because we are capturing this message one as the output for the first activity call, but I'm using that as an input for the next one, and so on. Yeah.
Quick question. In durable functions, you can store state between the first call to the second call. So the first function can save state, and then you can read it from the second one.
Yeah.
Are you doing that here, or you just not quite? But you could do that.
But that's it, right? Because the state of this message one, that is stored, right? So because all of the the whole checkpointing and replay part of durable functions, that's also done here as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So the inputs and outputs for all these activities are checkpointed into a state store, and then those are retrieved when this workflow is replaying. Yeah. So it's exactly the same thing. So what we get in the end is like a combination of multiple hello, hi, konnichiwa, guten tag, and then it ends with world. It's a bit of a silly example, but it gets across the point.
Yeah, I guess exactly.
All right, so we're going to do the chaining workflow. So that's this one, the chaining workflow. And again, we have a new ID.
So still using the same workflow ID. Okay,
yeah. Well, no. Whenever I'm executing this, the new one will be generated. Yeah. So I'm doing a new one. So this is now 9A7. So we get back a to accepted, and here we say the chaining workflow completed with completed status. So that's really nice. But let's actually check what's happening here. We do send requests to the same endpoint, but then specifying the ID to get the status. And here we see it's completed, and we have the output, hi, konnichiwa, ciao, world. All right. So now let's talk about the observability part. Because one of the nice things that Dapr workflow has is that observability and like distributed tracing is built in.
Yes.
So I
remember working at a bank where they tried to kind of do a greenfield project where they were doing microservices, right? And what happened is before they went to production, it was like a mortgage application form, but when people were testing it and got to like the 10th form to fill in, and it fell over, they couldn't work out what was going on along the path because they didn't have like a correlation ID to try and figure out that Marc logged in and then did these steps. So the logs were all over the place.
Yeah,
because there was multiple services logging, and it was chaos.
That is nasty. Yeah. So in this case, well, I've actually recently been on a live stream with Martin from Honeycomb. And then we did the same thing, and then we saw that it was not 100% perfect yet, but it's going in the right direction, because one of the things that you can see here is, well, you see all kinds of traces, but one of the nice things is this one, the create orchestration one. If you zoom into that one, we show what you can see here is that this is the actual orchestration that's happening, and you can see which activities it has been calling. So
there's 3 greeting activities.
Yeah. So this is the chaining one. So here you can see indeed. So you can dive a bit deeper here.
That's cool.
So this doesn't contain for the in and outputs. So there's probably not enough information as you would like to do, like,
but it'll get there. Yeah.
Proper debugging.
And
also the call that actually start this one is here, because there is like a post to start it. Let's see. So this one. So it starts with this, but ideally you would see this first, but then you would like to see in combination with this, right? So you don't actually see the starting one. So I'll I'll bring it up, and it'd be nice if you can include this as well. But I think this is where you want to be. Well, you want to be a bit further. You can see like the whole chain, but at least you see which activities have been started.
Yeah.
So it's getting there. Yeah.
Somebody was just pinging me. April Edwards has got some questions, but they're not appearing in chat. So, April, if you're watching, just ping me on Twitter, and I can ask Mark while we're doing this.
Yeah,
sometimes
not too difficult, please. Thank you.
No, I've already asked the difficult ones. I'll look at it.
Yeah, so this example contains like different other examples of what you can do with workflows, because you can do also like a fan out, fan in one, right? So if you have things that you want to execute as much as you can in parallel, and then aggregate over the results, you can do that as well. You can also have things based on timers.
Okay. Yep.
So that's also exactly the same as durable functions.
It's very similar.
So
I mean,
I've
only done durable functions for one thing, but loved it. Really cool, and it does look very similar.
Yeah, and also the continuous new one is here as well. So I think this is referred to as the monitor pattern. So if you want to run a task maybe every day or every week or something, you usually create then a combination of and the create timer, so you can introduce some kind of a delay, and then you can let's say restart the orchestration or workflow as a fresh orchestration and do the same thing over and over again.
Very cool.
So yeah, definitely check out this.
This
GitHub repo.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
and
is
I'll
there any
update this soon? Yeah. Go
You're
ahead.
creating what's the word I'm looking for? You're creating demos on your repo there.
Yes.
Is there like one thing I liked about Octopus Deploy is they used to have a repo where people in the community could put their samples. Is there anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. There is also so there's also I think Dapr samples.
I about that. You could go in and see people's scripts that they used inside Octopus Deploy. Also, that was great.
Yeah. So I think this Dapr samples one is
so
suitable
people can make
for exactly. Yeah. So the only downside is this can as well contain some outdated information, because I usually want it put in here. It's never really updated. But this is definitely the place if you want to have something public that uses Dapr and you want it part of a bigger collection. Just submit a pull request here. There are quite some pull requests in there. Yeah.
What's the URL for the Discord?
Oh, yeah.
Can you just stick that in private chat, and I can just bring it up here. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's this one. That one. I will also share the Quickstarts as well, and I'll also share this one. So they had a Dapr Discord. Is it active here? No. Let me show that. So the Dapr Discord is really the place to be if you have questions about Dapr. All of the maintainers are here, and loads of other people who are just using Dapr on a day-to-day basis. And it's really quite big. So we have channels for all of the APIs. So for all of the building block APIs, we have a channel. Then there's also separate channels for each of the repos, because there's multiple GitHub repos for Dapr. So if you have a question about the runtime or about the CLI or something, then there are special channels for each of the SDKs. So if you really have a language specific question, you can put it there. And then there's like something called topics, because some people want to have questions about Kubernetes or like specific middleware or performance or stuff like that. It's really huge. Definitely when you need to join, take your time and read the welcome message here, which explains a bit where you can find all the channels and what channels you can best use. And please introduce yourself in the introduction channel. So I will say hi back there.
So let me just show this one. So we've got the GitHub one. Is that github.com/Dapr/Quickstarts?
Yeah. That's this one.
The other one is this one. Let me just put that in a banner as well. What am I doing here? Let's do that one. So this one is the other GitHub one. So Diagrid Labs.
Yeah, that's this one. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, thanks for coming on, Mark, and demoing this, because I haven't really spent any time looking at this, and it's piqued my interest big time. And there's guys at work could probably, I don't know if they're using Dapr at the moment, but they definitely could.
Yeah.
Right, just before we go, let me just put up, Mark, where can people reach out to you? So Twitter is, let me just get rid of this banner, too many banners. So there's your Twitter, if you want to reach out to Mark there. He's also on LinkedIn, which is Mark. And you can also look at his serverless YouTube channel. I take it you're not doing much on that just now because you're too busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm really like swamped with this and and the product is so big, and there's like so many opportunities for to create content and stuff like that, because it spans multiple clouds, it spans multiple languages. So yeah, this really consumes all of my time.
Yeah, I just wanted to let me just find your best link is your Linktree one. I'll put that on.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of migrating my website, so I'm sharing a URL with you. That's my. Oh yeah, you can also use that in it.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Marc Duiker there. Let me put that up as well. Lots of links. I'll share all these in the notes.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and so this will be a new place for my blog post, but I'm also sharing some pixel art there and some creative coding examples.
Yes, your pixel art's very impressive. Yeah, I like the fact you've even got it on slides. So if people don't know much about Mark's pixel art stuff, then definitely check out his Linktree, because he's actually got plenty of store. You've even got a store with some pixel art that you're selling and giving money to charity.
Yeah, indeed.
Like
Yeah. I really have to. I really have to update that store, actually, because I have created many more things recently, but I really didn't update that store. Yeah.
Right, Mark, we went over time, so I just wanted to say thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's really cool.
It's great to do some demos and kind of get out there. Yeah, I'll obviously this is live on YouTube, so I'll point people to this when at any time I speak to them about Dapr. Right, before we go, tomorrow night I'm not here, and then on Thursday I have Adam Jackson, and I have completely forgotten who the other person is because my mind has slipped. Hang on, let me just check. Who have we got on Thursday? Let me just check before we go. I'm failing at this badly. We've got Freek Pearson. He's doing. He's going to do some demos on Bicep, and he's going to show us some of the new features in Bicep, which looks really cool.
Nice.
So I've got Freek on first, and then Adam Jackson on later on. So please do join us. Right, just before we go, I'm just going to play a little video to say cheerio. But Mark, thanks again for coming on. Absolute legend.
Thanks, everyone.
To speak to you again. Let me just play this out as we go. Thanks again.